Hey guys, welcome back to Set the Standard, the Selden Standard. We're trying to set the standard for ourselves. These are self-reminders, maybe crowd reminders, or reminders from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We are here today. I am Genelle, your host, one of your hosts, I should say. If this is your first time viewing our videos or listening in, we appreciate it. You are already family to us. No matter if you listen to this with criticism, we love it all. Or you're just here because you know us, whatever it is. So I'm Genelle, and this is...
Dad. We're on a roll here.
I feel like we've been on a tour or something.
Yeah. I think, if you're just catching this one, in our first podcast, our introductory podcast, we kind of talked about why we're doing this. And it really was, and we were having this discussion yesterday, are we educating? Are we self-help? Are we...
Right.
We talk about health. So we're kind of...
We looked at all the categories, and since this is our first few, maybe in the comments, write whatever one category you think we'd be in so far as well.
Well, I think,
But I think what we're going for is self-help and education.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you're sitting there and you're like, they're not educating me on anything, maybe you can educate us, right? This is kind of why, maybe some people can give us insight and education on us.
Well, truth be known that what we're bringing out and the method that we bring it out, if you will, in the format, a child and dad kind of approach, we recognized, and our knowledge comes from our experiences.
Totally.
And oftentimes...
from what you've passed down as your experience to me.
Yeah, well, which is, obviously part of what I learned from my family and so forth. And you have other side of your family as well. So we're trying to capture sort of the best of what we found that resonated not only with us, but when we'd have conversations with other people, thinking that what we knew was what everyone knew, sort of thing. And we began to find out that a lot of what we were discussing was kind of good information. And we wanted to make sure that as we discussed this idea that we, share some of what we thought resonated with other people. Wasn't just something we wanted to keep inside. We hope it helps. We're really trying to help people.
Totally. So with that being said, today's episode is all going to be about friendships. And not only just friendships, how to handle a jealous friend or how to handle your inner jealousy. Because listen, we're all not perfect. So some of us experience jealous friends. Some of us experience jealousy or lack thereof, right? So how do you deal with that? We're kind of going to be going over a few things and what you can learn, what you can do, mechanisms we've learned, and how we've handled friends that have showed jealous tendencies, or maybe if we've felt spikes of envy.
As I'm sitting here listening, I just thought, when we talked about the dating in one of the previous episodes, we said, why do people date? That was kind of one of our questions. And so you ask yourself, well, why do we have friends? Why do we want friends? And, you go back to your early years when you're in school, kindergarten, or even before that, you usually find yourself hanging out with other kids, whether it's in the playground or lunchtime, or if you're the new kid in town, maybe you moved into a new school and you don't know anybody. You always feel kind of left out, and you just hope someone might say, hey, what's your name? Or, let's hang out or whatever. And then if you think about the friends you've had from kindergarten to high school, it seems more rare than not to have the same set of friends, assuming you stay in the same area.
Totally.
Right. And so I have
that's a great point.
Yeah, I actually have a friend that I've known since kindergarten that I still see. And so you're talking 50 plus years I've known this individual, and it's not like we see each other that often. But what I always tell people when I see him, when we get together, it could be once a year. We may text.
It feels like you just picked up.
That's right. And and he's been through some really as you might imagine, anybody who's lived as long as we have, that
Isn't that so interesting?
it is very interesting. And
do people really change? No, it's a whole nother topic. But
but it does lead to some of this.
Because if you can pick up where you left off over a course of 50 years.
Well, if you think when you're in kindergarten, right, every kid, there's really no, until you go to their house. You remember as a kid, you go to another kid's house and you go, man, Dad, they got a pool. Or something like that, right? Yeah. You know, there's something as a kid, whatever was be big to you.
Their pantries are full of food.
I don't know if you said that. but it was funny. You know, you guys would come home, and I remember one particular friend you had actually later in life. They got brand new cars.
They
right
did.
when they turned 16, you were like, "Well, Dad, they got brand new cars," and I'd be like, "Well, maybe you should go live with them." You know,
I tried.
And
trust me, I tried with a few friends.
But that's when it really heats up. I'm not saying you don't have little jealousies when you're in elementary school.
Sometimes, I remember I have a scar on my eyebrow. And I remember there was this game in elementary school where the prettiest girl or the cutest boy, they would get chased. We'd play this game. And I remember this one girl, she was like the prettiest girl at the time. She would run and all the boys would try to chase her, right? And I remember then the cutest boy, he would run. So one time I started running after one of the cute boys with a bunch of the girls. It was almost like you do it to play tag, but it was like you were going after the cute. I don't remember. I was in first grade. And I remember my neighbor boy had a crush on me. So when I was like chasing after the one cutest boy, the cutest boy was like, or the neighbor guy was like, no, stop doing that. And he grabbed my arm and he spun me around and he let go. And he didn't mean to, but when he let me go, I had spun out of control and I had hit a pole and I busted my whole eye open.
So that's what happened to your face.
Right. So
couldn't resist. Sorry.
So look at that. Jealousy, right? My neighbor boy who was kind of nerdy, weird. He was like, hey, don't chase him. He grabs my arm because it was his friend too. So he was like helping his friend get, me. I was another nerdy girl. I was nothing, it was weird.
So how can a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old
they have jealousy?
Know that?
Right?
How could they know? Because are they going, well, they have it and I don't?
Yes.
And therefore, because they don't really know what the word jealous is.
Right.
I mean, if you asked a 5-year-old.
But they feel it in nature.
Well, there you go. So we're dealing with a emotion that
I feel like it's a mechanism for competition, to be superior in nature.
As we think of friends now, back to the friends, there's a development of jealousies and so forth. And I think a lot of it starts to happen with the popularity of one kid over another. You just kind of described that. I think, all of a sudden this kid's the best athlete, or she's the prettiest, or he's the handsomest, or whatever. And kids that pecking order starts fairly early.
Yep.
And then it gets into the material side of it, right? You right away, the kid who wears the Jordans to school, or the coolest, whatever the shoes are.
Right.
And when you're a kid, everybody's
or the purse.
What they wear is such a big deal. Probably not as a kindergartner as much as you start getting into the upper grades.
Yeah, it gets worse.
People start really seeing that kids that their parents have money and they can wear the fancy, $100 jeans or whatever they cost nowadays. And so
$300.
Well, that's right. And so this is, I think, where that starts. And so if you think about, you're the kid who has all that stuff and then the kid who doesn't, how do you start building in the understanding? Say you're an 8th grader and you see this kid has way more. He's the best backpack. He's got an iPhone 20 or whatever. He's got the best computers, the coolest clothes, the $200 tennis shoes, and he's good looking, this and that. How do you then deal with that as a parent at home, knowing that your kid's going to school? And I'm talking public school here. I'm not talking necessarily
right.
And in every school, whether it's private or public, there's always going to be somebody who has a little bit more. So what do you do there? How do you make sure that a child understands maybe that idea that why does that kid have it and I don't? Is that the parent's responsibility to kind of explain that?
Well, I feel like when I was a kid, obviously I grew up in a more like, there were really wealthy kids going to my school, very well off.
You definitely had the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
You had the extreme. You had trailer park kids and you had kids living in very expensive homes.
Insane.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I ever came to you and said, why did blah, 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 why does she have a brand new Mercedes and BMW and you haven't given me that?
Yes, you did.
Well, wouldn't the answer be like, I'm not going to pay for that? Well, you would say, well, I would ask, and then you'd be like, well, why would I pay for that? You're a new driver.
Well, can I tell them the story about the car? It's probably the best example.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to get off of the jealous.
It has to do with it, though, because right when you were turning 16, right around that time, and this happened when I was a kid, too, so this isn't, there were parents going out and buying their kids brand new cars. They were. Now, whether they could afford it or not afford it really isn't the point. The point is that you're giving a 16-year-old new driver a brand new car. Now, the parent might say, well, I know my kid's going to be safe. They've got a dependable car. It's got the best safety and all this kind of stuff. My approach was to help you appreciate things was, number one, if you want something in life, you have to work for it. That helps with this jealousy, I believe. Because when you go out and work for something and you have to go through whatever that takes, whether it's working a lot of hours, whether it's saving your money and not buying something else you want and so forth. So as an example, I bought Genelle a car of the same year she was born. And a friend of mine gave me this idea. So say, for example, if you were born in 1990, when Genelle was 16, I would be looking for a 1990 car.
I was not born in 1990.
That's correct. I was just throwing them off there. I'll let them do some math on that. Okay. But anyway, I found this car, really good condition. I think I paid $700 for it. So I surprised Genelle with this car. And
real surprise.
I did. You didn't know I bought it for you. And I gave it to Genelle, and she goes, well, I'm not driving that to school. So Genelle already felt that it would be embarrassing.
But that wasn't jealousy. I wanted to feel cool and fit in.
But it starts with you're comparing yourself. Jealousy comes from comparing yourself to someone else.
But I didn't ever feel like towards my friends, I never felt maliciousness. If anything,
I didn't say that.
If anything, I was like, well, I'm sleeping at so-and-so's house so I can ride in their car. Because I wanted to be. Where I've noticed with the jealousy I've seen in friends, they more so try to pull it away from me. So if they notice that I'm obtaining something, they
now you're talking as an adult now,
even as like a younger, when I was younger too.
So what I'm trying to describe is how a parent can help the situation.
Okay.
So what I was trying to do was, there's a couple lessons here. One is, just because Susie Q gets a brand new car doesn't mean your pops is buying you a brand new car.
Right.
Okay?
But I wondered why I couldn't get one.
Because I knew the best life lessons are taught and earned. And one of those lessons is the value of working for something and appreciating something and not creating jealousy over what someone gets given to them, even though that's harder to do than to say. So as an example, when you told me that about the car, I was like, well, that's fine. You don't have to drive the car. You can take the bus. And you looked at me like, but you drove the car, right?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
I didn't take the bus,
And maybe you parked it in the back. I don't know what you did.
I did. Okay. I would drive in. Yeah.
So what's funny about that is it's not like it was clean. It wasn't rusted out. It had all good tires. It was a safe car.
I mean, but it was from the early 90s.
Well, I know, but it's not like your parking lot was all filled with Porsches and Mercedes-Benz either. So there was a variety of kids driving. You had kids with beaters. You had your car. Some
beaters, but a lot of them were the Jeeps, right? A lot of the kids did those
again,
Jeeps.
Not every kid had a new car.
I know. Not every kid.
So my point was, and then when you said to me, I said, well, if you want, this was the deal. If you want a better car or a nicer car, you got to get a job and you have to save your money. And whatever you earn, I'll pitch in the same amount. We'll sell this car and all that money go towards another car. That was the deal.
Yeah.
And, you were busy with track and some other activities, but you always had a job. I mean, you started working at 16.
I did. Because I wanted to obtain I then realized if you wanted to obtain things, whether you matched me on the price or I wanted to go shopping with my friends, I like the finer things in life. And the finer things were a newer t-shirt I could wear to school and feel
Abercrombie
pretty.
and Finch.
Yeah, and I liked finer things.
What was the other brand?
There was Hollister.
Hollister.
Yes.
Oh boy, yeah.
I know.
Gotta have Hollister.
Well, then there was Forever 21 coming around, and so that became cheaper, so I could still get a cute shirt with my own money, So, so I always had a job then because I realized then if I wanted to obtain things, they weren't going to be just dropping from the sky. I did have to show some sort of discipline. So I think maybe that's why, I wonder, I sit here as you were talking, and I'm not perfect. So this is not me trying to make a statement that I'm perfect or anything. I have so many flaws and character flaws that I've learned. But, jealousy for me with other people who obtain amazing things, whether it dropped from the sky for them or they worked really hard to get it, I fed off that motivation. Sometimes I would grow up and as I got older and people were showing jealous signs to me and that were hurtful and malicious to me, I'd be like, wow, why don't I feel like that? What in me, in maybe my environment or how I was raised, kept me from feeling malicious intent? Because it's
not
crazy.
Malicious always, but I think
no, it's not always malicious, but the girls that I endured were malicious towards me.
I think I just, as a parent, when you're doing these things, like I said, when I was doing it with the car, you don't know what my full intentions are because you think as a kid I'm being mean to you because I don't have the new car.
Well, you tried to explain.
Yeah. So, and that really is going to be another podcast about how you, as you're doing these things as a parent, how you're doing it with the right intentions while your kid may not fully understand it, going deeper in the explanation. And Genelle will tell you that I always try to go another layer. And by the way, I could afford at the time to get you a nicer car, but I really felt that this was a lesson, right? Plus, I knew just starting to drive, you might bump into a few things. So I was also like, getting you a car that I felt was safe, but I also felt like if you backed into someone else or
No, yeah, I think we get like,
so there's
yeah.
but that goes directly to or
well,
it's
why
are
people jealous then?
Yeah. So there's the other extreme where a kid's parents can't, maybe they can't afford or they don't want to, they give the kid absolutely nothing. So those kids they don't even have a cell phone, they got the worst cell phone, not the nicest cell phone, and they ask their parent, well, why can't I have that? And sometimes it's a financial thing, right? So kids will be jealous that why can't they have the things that other kids have?
Why do you think they have that?
Jealousy. They don't understand. Someone needs to teach them.
Oh, okay.
That this is kind of the way the world works, unfortunately. That's really the first lesson is the parents have to teach their kids what jealousy is. Because, by the way, it happens at every level.
It does, because then we'll get into the older stuff.
Yeah, I've been through quite a few of those.
Yep.
And so I think I put, one of the things we discussed was how do you teach humility? I think it starts with the parents.
Oh, teaching humility. But that's a whole different, I feel like
it is and it isn't. Because if you're not jealous, hopefully you're humble. If you're humble.
Some people just float along.
No, I'm saying you understanding what humility is.
Because there have been times where I wasn't jealous of a friend, but I wouldn't say that I was humble. I would say that I was a little bit up my own butt.
Maybe I needed to do a better job with that then.
Or because I was in my early 20s. It was when I was really making money. I wasn't really jealous of anyone who was higher or lower than me. I wasn't really thinking about anyone. I was kind of up my own butt. So I wasn't.
So, not to be critical, but I would tell you that's not entirely true. You have had your moments where you don't understand why some people have, quote, had it easier than you.
Oh, no.
Well, that's jealousy.
No. Well, I guess the jealousy part that I want to get through that I feel like a lot of people deal with is people treating them some type of way because of the jealousy.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So I would just say if we're really getting into just how to handle it with a friend, and if a friend is treating you, ignoring you, how do you handle somebody who can't be happy for you genuinely? Okay. Because technically for me, my friends' wins are my wins. It's always been like that for me. I can honestly, truthfully say with like all my might that I have always been happy for my friends' wins and been so excited for them, you know? And if they're succeeding and they're doing their thing, I am like,
why are you that way?
I just think a win with a friend is a win for me because think about it. They always say the quote, you are who you surround yourself with. So if my friends or my family members are kind of on the escalator upwards and they're doing these things and maybe I'm trucking along or I made a mistake, whatever, or I'm burning or whatever, or I got dumped. If they're finding success and love and they're happy, that'll only mean that I'm going to get that one day. It may not be on my time and my terms. So remember, you are who you surround yourself with. So I've always been excited. That's why what I've struggled with, I think, and I hope that we can give a little bit of insight here, is when the friends are not happy. You come around them and they're just like annoyed at you. They don't really have any communication as to maybe what you did. If they're upset about something, it becomes very weird. So I know that you've shared with me when you were starting your job, you kind of, you didn't have to go to school all 4 years to have a successful job. And when you bought a house and you were getting married and you were having a healthy, successful, moving milestone of a life, you had people around you notice tendencies. So how did you deal with that? Because that was back in the 90s.
Well, I think what I learned is that, so some of the example is, these are people we knew each other when we were kind of all the same, if you will. We were all working, going to school. Our parents were, lower middle class type deal. We all were just hardworking people and going through the motions of life. And it's usually right after college, people's careers start developing and things start happening. And, it's kind of funny. I always use this example. You go to your first class reunion, like your 10-year. Mm-hmm. So, everybody's in their late 20s now. And that's when you generally, people start, I'm now an engineer, right. And, I'm this, I'm a doctor, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I own a business or, and everyone seems like they have to, and a recent example, just recently happened to me 2 years ago. I went to a wedding of a guy I knew for many, many years and hadn't seen that much over a 40-year period, but invited me to his wedding, which was kind of odd, but I went. He was first time married, so he waited a long time. But I ran into this guy I haven't seen probably since high school. Mm-hmm. And he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, how you doing? I live in an 18-room house." And oh, okay. I looked at him and I thought, so I think people who are like that as an example, or, hey, look at my car, or look at my watch, look at my purse, their ranking in life is predicated on what they have.
Totally.
So they also, so that's.
How do you handle not being jealous of that?
Yeah. So I take the approach where I'd rather be low key about my.
Well, why don't you care? When he said, I've got an 18-bedroom home,
I think I said congratulations, actually. Because I didn't. What do you say to that?
Well, did you feel?
I have a
22-room
house.
Did you feel jealousy?
No.
Why do you think you didn't?
I think that it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I was raised a certain way. My parents didn't have a lot. We were comfortable, but we didn't have a lot. I come from a humble background, and I was a person that strived for success. My dad had a saying. He said, I always wanted it better for my kids than what I had. And it really resonated with me because what he had as a child was horrible. So he was going to improve on that. And I'm not saying it was easy, but he was, in his mind, he was saying, I wanted it better for my family. And I saw my dad work hard. I saw my mom work hard. I saw them provide for us. I saw them sacrifice for us, me and my brothers. And I think that environment and just the way they did that made me have humility. And so when I started achieving some success, I wanted my parents to be proud of me.
Plus, you wanted people to be excited.
And the people who matter, and this is the key to this now, the people who matter will be supportive of you, will be
think?
happy for you.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not saying there wouldn't be a family member who might go,
But
you think you're a big shot now or something. I mean,
right.
that stuff happens. That is pure jealousy. That's just the fact that they don't have what you have. And there are just going to be flat out jealous people. What we're saying is we don't want to associate with those people.
So wait, when you started feeling the jealous tendency of a friend that came to, you got a new house, right? And you're like, here, come over. I want to host you for dinner, right? I want to show you, my new place. How did you handle the kind of whatever?
I didn't know it. It was interesting.
Oh, you didn't feel it?
Because they came over.
Yeah.
And and then I'd invite them over again or something. Well, then it slipped out that one of them said to one of the other, quote, friends. I always find this interesting. Use the word friends. These are really acquaintances. Is a whole nother discussion.
I thought this was someone you went to high school with.
No. I know that. But I'm saying we called them friends.
Oh.
But our definition of friends changes as we grow older and we begin to understand these things we're talking about.
Right.
Jealousy is only one of them. So what the one friend slipped up and said, yeah, so-and-so says you're just wanting to have us over to show off. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that never crossed my mind. We hung out all the time. I was just having you over because it was cool to hang out and play some music and, whatever. And so it just really threw me. I didn't expect that.
Right.
Then I found out years later, that was just the nature of this person. So could I have seen that in advance? Let's leave with a couple of things here. If you're dealing with a jealous friend, what do you do? What would you do if you felt you had a jealous friend? How do you handle that?
Yeah.
What do you do?
So, I'll tell a really quick story. I had a roommate, one of my only roommates I've ever had. And I remember, this is where it could go one of two ways. I started my YouTube channel and it was really taking off. I was kind of in the middle of it, I was really going upwards. And I remember I'd pick an hour every other day and I would record. And I remember I was sitting down to record my video. I had let her know. I was like, oh, I'm going to record, whatever. And she was normally pretty quiet. She wasn't anything like too noisy. So I peeked my head out and I was like, wow, okay, she's really doing this right now. So I peeked my head out and I was like, hey, do you mind? I'm recording. This is like my hour. I'm going to be recording. Do you mind if you just, turn it off? She goes, I can turn it down. And I was like, okay, we'll try that. And I remember going to my room. She barely turned it down. And I remember just like almost being in tears because there had been a buildup in this friendship of a lot of small things, right? And I just remember being upset. So time had went on, a few weeks, whatever. So I remember I was like, she had left the house to go to a workout or something. So I was like, oh, this is my time to film, right? Because I never wanted to come off a bother because I was thinking maybe, she knew of my scheduling and stuff like that for my YouTube videos. She knew I wanted this so bad and I was so excited, right? And I only needed about an hour because you don't want YouTube videos to be 4 hours. So I'd film for my hour, whatever. So she left and I remember getting all my stuff together, getting ready, going to film. She came home a little earlier than I expected. And I was like, oh, I'm filming, whatever. Just be a few more minutes. So a few minutes had went by and I was like really trying to rush. And I remember she's cranked on the smoothie. And I remember coming out and I was like, can your smoothie wait a few more minutes? She goes, I already waited a few minutes. And I was like, okay, well, you've only been home for about 10 minutes. So I just need 5 more minutes. I tried to get this done while you were
trying to kill her with kindness.
Right. I was trying my best, right? Because she was a little bit older than me. And so I felt like she was kind of not an authoritative figure because she wasn't that much. She was older. So I remember going and sitting down and she just cranked on her smoothie. So here's the answer to your question. I sat there and I go, do I just turn it off and wait for her one day to leave again so I could do this YouTube video, or do I walk out there and say something? So me being young, I probably didn't approach it the best, but I walk out there and I go, I think we need to talk. And she was like, what's up? And I was like, I was fuming too because I was so just over this walking on eggshells feeling. I was like, I don't know if you're jealous of me or the career I'm choosing or I can't wrap my head around why you're being so malicious and you're so passive with me when I'm just trying to just literally, I'm asking for like 15 minutes each time. It wasn't like these hours would go by or I'd need her to leave for the day or whatever. And I was like, I just please like explain to me because this is hurting our friendship. And she looks at me and she goes, I would never be jealous of you. I would never. And I said, okay. So with that being said, you know, it kind of just people are going to gaslight you, right? People are going to kind of turn things on you. So even approaching it, and granted, that wasn't the best way to approach her. Now moving forward, if I'm feeling a jealous kind of competitive vibe, because even competitiveness can turn slight, oh, I'm going to beat her out. Oh, she's doing this. I'm going to do this. Or you almost get that, you feel an edge. You know what I do? And this will lead into exactly, I just tone myself down, not too much, but I keep it to myself. You know, I've found ways to live on my own. I've worked harder. I'll do whatever it takes so I don't have to room with people. There are sacrifices I have made to avoid those situations, and because I wanted it bad enough. And now sometimes if I'm going to work on something and it's in the beginning stages, I won't tell anybody. I'll keep it pretty low because I noticed when I would tell friends, some people would, or I would just keep a low profile because I noticed when I had friends, they'd be like, oh, wow, I've always wanted to do that. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting, I can't wait to hear it, it was like, okay. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let my action show. And then just not say a peep. I'm just going to do what I got to do. So what do you think about the whole...
Well, you know, it's funny. My dad used to have, you know, we quote our Genelle's grandparents, and that's, you know, kind of what's behind some of these conversations. My dad would say, never ask someone how much it cost. Like if someone says, hey, I got a new car, don't say, well, what it cost? Well, hey, I got a new chair for my front room, what it cost? Because you're already insinuating that if they spent a certain amount of money, you'd be like, oh, wow, you bought. Nowadays, everyone can look everything up anyway. Right. So why I start with that is one of the things is when you're working hard and you're working towards a goal to buy a material thing and you get it, who's it for? It's for you. You set that goal. You wanted that item, whether it's something very simple to something very elaborate. And the people that usually are the most excited for you are your family, again, usually, and a very small group of people.
Like tiny.
Like so the best thing to do
maybe.
is not flaunt it. Give you an example. I had talked to somebody recently, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And they said, what are you driving now?
Ooh.
Which is kind of an interesting question.
Well, it's like a guy question, right?
It is. And in this individual wasn't where I felt like it was going to be like, oh, you know, anything like not that I'm driving anything that crazy. But my point being is that I don't ask people those questions. I don't, you know, I don't try to go around like saying, hey, you know, like my dad would say, hey, nice watch. How much it cost? Oh, when'd you get that car? What are you driving? Where do you live?
Your dad would say that?
No, I'm saying these are things I avoid, and I don't flaunt when I get something. I just, because I'm doing it for myself.
Right.
So I think what we're getting at here is if you sense there's a jealousy in a friend you've had for a while, have a conversation. Okay? And just say, hey, you know, I want you to know that I'm not flaunting my newest,
or I don't like the guy you're dating, right? Because I've had that type of jealousy too.
So there's jealousies and
so like
yes.
I think keep going, but I think the conversation. So
yeah, so I think if the friendship has been something you've had for a while, and again, depending in your age group, if you're in that coming out of high school towards college to middle to late 20s, that's when life changes really occur in people's lives, and undoubtedly, there's going to be someone who just takes off in life, quote, materially, or gets married right away, have kids right away, whatever that is. So if you remain friends through that, that's a good sign you're good friends.
Right.
Right? It really is.
Yeah.
That you are happy for each other.
Where like my cousin went through a milestone of transitioning from high school to college, and friends dropped pretty quick.
Yeah. And she really learned that who was who.
Right.
So take that.
Yep.
Then wouldn't you want that revealed to you? So
100%.
So if it's worth a conversation, have the conversation. If that doesn't get it anywhere, then it may be time, like you did a few times, you've moved on from those.
So I would say with what you just said was great. For me, not everyone wants to be like, hey, I'm feeling something weird. Let's have a conversation. What I like to do now as an adult is I watch what I say to who I say things to. So pretty much only one person knows if I'm going to make a career decision, if I'm going to see a boy, seeing a boy. I keep it very low key for a lot of reasons, but you know.
And you know, as I'm listening to you, people might think, well, this is kind of sad, right? That you can't have.
It's life.
It is.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Especially if you're obtaining beautiful, amazing things. Now, granted, I do have such amazing people that really, with my success, got even more excited for me, right? Mm-hmm. So it almost empowered me because I learned that the stragglers straggled off. But what I was going to say with this is the steps I would take if you're 18, you're 16, you're 25, you're 30, you're 35, whatever it is, you're 40, how I would handle a jealous friend if I'm feeling jealousy is I like to distance myself and be like, maybe they just need a break from me. Because I always like to, So
don't confront them.
At first. Because I like to take the path as maybe I'm just being too much. Because I can be as a person. Maybe I said something weird. I give distance, so I don't want to assume that jealousy is there. I like to assume maybe I've been a little bit, because I am a codependent person. Maybe I've been a little bit too codependent. Maybe I said something. I'm going to back off for a little while. This is what I told my cousin to do about a situation. Let them have space, because space is such an amazing way to let the heart grow a little bit for any sort of kind of pit that's happening, kind of whether it's between a family member, friend, lover, partner, wife, whatever. Let some space be had. And I feel like if you're in tune with yourself or try to get in tune, you'll know when that space is kind of like, all right, this has gone a little far. I should either say something. So what I do is I let the space be known. And then when I really just feel that, wow, this friend is just like, I think it's over, I will say, you know, hey, what's going on? You know, do you have anything to discuss? And if they're like, nope, I'm good, then you know where you stand. Mm-hmm. I always think if you really care about somebody, you love somebody, I think a conversation, and there's, you know, you may not ever get the closure you want. I still have people in my life that didn't leave with amazing closure, but I think a conversation face to face, if you've loved this person before, beginning, middle, end, whatever, as a friend or whatever, family, I think a conversation of, hey, I've let this space kind of air out and it's still stagnant. You know, how are you feeling? And that's how I've approached it now as an adult with my friends, and it's worked well for me. So what do you
think? Well, I think that sometimes if you sense that you have a friend that's a little jealous, make sure that when they share something positive in their life that's going on, that you're really complimentary of that. Wow, good job, proud of you. You know, how cool is that? That's
and
just,
I do. I get so excited.
And I'm not saying you. We're talking now in general.
Anybody, yeah.
So if it's always, you know,
so pumped up for them.
You've called me and said, you know, you get on the phone with a particular person and the whole conversation is about what's going on in their life. Mm-hmm. They never say, hey, how are you?
Which honestly, though, for me, sometimes that's kind of nice.
Again, these are just examples where if you're always on the phone with somebody and it's always what they're about their life, mm-hmm. never about, hey, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. So what in reverse of that is make sure, say your life is going well and things are going good. Make sure when you get together or you talk, hey, how are you doing? Ask them how they're doing and then compliment them. So go above and beyond.
Yep.
Now, if that doesn't begin to help the friendship, move away from these tendencies, these jealous tendencies, then it may be time to move on.
Right.
You know, after a conversation or after you're doing your part, you're not no longer, you know, saying, hey, look at me, look at all the stuff I have. You're complimenting them. You're giving them, hey, good job. You know, all this you're trying to build. Hey, well, how can I help you?
Right.
All these things. If that's not still getting you in a position where the friendship seems, then it's time to move on.
Well, sometimes I have found me being a cheerleader for my friends wasn't enough. Sometimes I've had friends where they've expected me to then do stuff for free for them, which is fine. I don't mind. But then,
within reason.
Right. So I think
like borrowing money, which they say is a bad thing.
Or, you know, if someone, you know, is launching a line or something and they're like, well, I want you on set with me through all my hardship because I can't afford it because remember, there is a balance too, and you have to be fair as a friend. And from what you had just said too, just be genuinely, and even if it's hard for you, maybe you're going through a hard time, you're sitting here, you're like, wow, well, I lost my job, I got broken up with, I'm constantly rejected by men, but my friend over here is attracting all these amazing guys, amazing husband material, right? Like, we've been there. And let's say your girlfriend, your guy friend, whatever, finds someone that's amazing for them, and you're like, wow, I really want to be married. Still know that the timing for you will be right for you, and that your friend, if they're a great friend to you, lift them up. Even if you're so down, still give them that praise. Be so excited for their journey, because if they're going to pull through and do amazing, it'll only help you uplift yourself too. And I feel like I get so much motivation from when I get to talk to my friends about projects they're working on and cool things they're doing and new skills they learn. I have a good friend that lives not in the same city as me, and she's obtaining all these skills in the music industry and stuff. And I think it's so cool. She gets to today, we even had a conversation, she gets to teach me all this stuff. And I kind of felt like a dummy, but you know what? Hit me with it. Let me learn, because I'm not going to be jealous that you know more in that department. I'm going to want you to teach me, help me, and guide me so I can be better. So just find the best in friends that maybe if you are feeling jealous, we talked a lot about people jealous of us, but if you are feeling jealous, right?
What I would say starting off, just be humble, focus on doing rewarding for yourself. That's the first and foremost. If your family notices it, that's really the important people in your life, hopefully. And then if you have is it BFF? Is that what you always use?
Bestie.
A bestie now is the term. All right.
Bestie.
Then, that person should be with you through thick and thin. And that's when you really learn the strength of any relationship, is when you go through these peaks and valleys. We were talking about that in dating. We'll talk about marriage at some point. Is if this person sticks with you through the highs and lows, then these are the type of people that you want to continue to keep in your life. But you're also going to meet a lot of people that are going to come and go. Just be prepared for that. Mm-hmm. That I can tell you as I sit here today, that outside of my brother, probably the closest friend that I have, I met in the last 20 years or so. Wow. Other than the guy that I still see who's a kindergarten. So right. So just remember that.
Wow, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's part of what goes on in life. Just be prepared for that. I think when you start establishing friendships and you're sincere and you're having deeper conversations, that can help with these things. But jealousy can be a really nasty thing. Mm-hmm. And it leads to a lot of, I probably watched too many of those murder mysteries.
Oh, no, unsolved mysteries.
Where there's jealousy leads to some crazy stuff. But we're just talking, on the level of friendships and things of that nature. So, think about this. We'll look for some comments on how you handle these types of things, how you handle jealousies, or being jealous yourself. I know the other side of this coin is when you have a friend who's struggling and you try to help them in whatever manner that is, and then they don't do anything with it. They just keep coming back because they see you're having success. So they're like, well, if you have success, I should have success. Well, if you're going to have it, sometimes they think it's easy. A lot of people think success comes easy. So if you can do it, I can do it. Right. Well, let me tell you what it takes here.
You can, but it takes.
Exactly. And then they don't want to do that. And so then they whine and complain. Those people become quite a burden also. But
but you can get rid of those ones fast. But so to highlight, remember, be happy for your friends. If they're doing amazing things, lift them up. give them motivation and love. And then stay humble to yourself to keep yourself grounded, because it'll help your mental state too when you're alone.
And parents, if you're raising kids at a very young age, you can start teaching them these things. That's important.
Totally. And then the last one I would say that we covered, be careful on flaunting success. Just know that it is so much more rare to find people who are genuinely happy for you. So just know and this doesn't mean you can't be excited, but just know it comes with a caution sign.
That's right.
And so to be careful, and it's kind of nice to keep things to yourself, because then it becomes special with yourself, and that's what I kind of look at it as. So.
Well, I say we leave it there. We could probably keep going on this one, but we appreciate you watching as always. And we hope that you walk away with a couple of morsels of helpful information.
Yeah, this was good. I liked this one.
Yeah, and we'll probably circle back. Some of these we'll need to circle back and take a slight different approach, and we hear from you guys as well. So we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And
and what we should do in the upcoming episodes, if you want to leave a question down below, maybe on like a subcategory of this, if you want us to touch more on, that would be great, because I think what we plan on doing is kind of a Q&A section to a few of our episodes coming up, where we kind of just go over some questions and we kind of do maybe some fast-paced rapid fire questions. That'd be pretty cool. So anyways, you guys, I didn't mean to cut you off, but thank you for listening.
Peace.
We'll see you guys.
Over and out.
Peace.